Akanksha. I did the master's program in dance movement therapy and counseling at Columbia College Chicago, and I graduated in 2016. And since 2016, I have been working in Delhi. I work with children, adolescents, and young adults, and I'm also the founding board member for Indian Association of Dance Movement Therapy. And I'm happy to be here, and this is my movement for today.
Hi everyone, I'm Deepa. I am speaking from Mumbai. I practice dance movement therapy. My training started in 2014 at Artsphere with a certificate course, followed by internships. Then I went to Lesley University to do my master's in dance therapy and clinical mental health counseling. I worked there as an outpatient clinician, moved back to India over a year ago. And I am currently in Mumbai. I work with Tata Institute of Social Sciences on a field action project in legal settings. And I run this thing called Dance for Mental Health, through which I offer dance therapy services. My movement for now is thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Disha Sampat and I'm connecting with each one of you from Mumbai. I graduated from Pratt Institute, New York in 2019, and since then I have been advocating for dance movement therapy and mental health by conducting workshops and advocating for it. And my movement for today is
Hi everyone, my name is Nishi, Joshi. I am speaking to all of you from New Delhi. I did my master's in dance movement psychotherapy from Goldsmiths University in London. And I came back, I graduated and came back last year. I had the opportunity to work in my clinical placements. I had the opportunity to work with a range of client groups, and the one that was the closest professional experience for me was working with women survivors who had experienced human trafficking, rape, and domestic abuse. So I've come back now. I've set up my own organization here called The Safe Space, and here I'm offering dance movement psychotherapy services and working again closely with individuals who've experienced abuse and trauma. And I am also now associated with Neve Mental Health Clinic, which is based in New Delhi, and I'm working there as a case-based consultant and offering body-based and movement therapy. And very happy to be here. And my movement for today is
Hi everyone, my name is Ruchi. I currently live in Bombay. I did my master's in dance movement therapy and counseling from Columbia College Chicago and graduated in 2016 with Akanksha. After I graduated, I worked in Chicago at an inpatient psych hospital, and I moved back to India a year after that. Since I've been in India, I've worked with a range of populations. I've worked with adults, teenagers, older adults through my individual therapy private practice. I work at a school for children with special needs. And I have founded my project, which is called the Rhythm Project, which works with children who've experienced complex trauma using dance movement therapy and counseling techniques. I am now also the co-founder and the joint secretary of IADMT, which is the Indian Association of Dance Movement Therapy. And I'm very happy to be here today. My movement is that.
Right. Hi everyone, my name is Aditi Trivedi. I graduated from the MA Dance Movement Therapy and Counseling program at Drexel University back in 2018. And then for a year, I worked there. I split my time between inpatient psych hospital and an outpatient family therapy clinic. And I love working with all age ranges. I've worked from like 3 months old to 94-year-old. So it's been quite a wide range. Just goes to show how widely DMT can be used, but my heart really still lies with pediatric medical settings. Since coming back to India in late 2019, I've been on a hiatus, and then coronavirus has sort of pushed my work plans back. But I'm very excited to be involved with different professional organizations related to DMT here, and I'm hoping to start some clinical work in a month or two. And my movement for today, because I'm very excited to be a part of this panel, is
speaking of formal education, I feel I've had this, I've had the privilege of experiencing getting trained in India as well as in the US with a master's, because my journey, as is with actually Akshita, who's hosting this, who got the panel together for us today. We started our journey with Arts Fair. At that time in 2014, I think it was perhaps the second, if not the first, certificate cohort that came together in India for under mostly like Tripura's training and Arts Fair's organization. So that was my first time experiencing dance movement therapy. It was 6 months. It had a lot of, I thought it had a lot of depth and detail, given it was only 6 months. And when I, from there, went to my master's, to do my master's at Leslie, I was like an open book because I had the 6 months. I worked based on the 6 months of internships in India and in the US at the Hancock Center. So I was really curious when I went the next day to do my master's, how it would be different. So I think I'd like to talk about how it felt different at that time, and so we can speak for, I can speak to both sides. It began with a lot of unlearning, my master's. It began with not jumping at the first question, what is dance movement therapy? How do you use dance movement therapy for, say, emotional expression? I knew the answers at the back of my head because I'd learned them. And then by jumping to it, I realized, by jumping and failing at not at an opportunity to learn, I realized that the more answers I knew, the less I was embodying or sitting with it. And so essentially for me, the difference is I feel it's possible to get that kind of cognitive knowledge wherever you're studying, but the gift of absorbing dance movement therapy and making it as part of your everyday life and being and living like a dance movement therapist is the journey I've had with my master's. It's something, it's taught me to slow down. It taught me to be authentic with practicing what I'm preaching and to make mistakes, and really that's what it held for me. And apart from that, also I feel like the clinical aspect of things was a lot more because it's also clinical mental health counseling, and given the structures in the US, you work with systems that are in place for mental health, and that really gives you an opportunity to learn to be a professional and get supervision and get exposure, if I may, to the different kinds. But I think my biggest learning for the formal education was to take it slow and to embody everything that you practice.
So I would just like to add that I think I agree with you, Deepa. There was a lot of like unlearning for me as well when I started out my master's journey. I had to forget everything that I picked up from here and that I hadn't had any kind of educational experience, but I did have an internship experience before doing my master's. So I had to not unlearn, but learn to trust my body a little bit more than learning to trust the concepts and definitions that I learned over time. But for me, I think the two big things that came out of formal education and DMT were, one, it helped me understand my own experience, you know, like my personal journey of that I'd been through with my body. I think it helped me find words for that. And the second thing that it really helps me and continues to help me do is build my confidence and skills to work in a more informed, in a more ethical and safe manner with other people and other bodies, you know. So because a lot of the work, a lot of our work is non-verbal and a lot of our work is intuitive. And I think that process, the 2-year-long journey, really helped me trust my intuition, trust my body knowledge to understand someone else's and really contain their movement, you know, and presence and their body's presence. I think in a very, like I said, safe and ethical manner. It gave me the skills and techniques to do that. And lastly, I also think that the marriage between like the verbal counseling skills and DMT that was covered in our masters, it makes my work a lot more holistic in that way. And I really enjoy doing that as well as a part of my training.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because Akanksha, you and I had similar formal trainings, but I think it's a good segue. For me, I think the reason I got into dance movement therapy, a lot of people I've heard say it's because of their love for psychology. For me, it was always my love for dance and for art and for creative expression more than psychology, actually. All of the work that I did when I was younger with communities, with children, was using the arts, and I always knew I was doing something and I was touching upon something. And I say this every time someone asks me this question. A formal education gave me the theoretical framework and the language to understand not just about myself, like Akanksha said, our program helped us like uncover everything about ourselves, which like she said makes me trust myself and my body a lot more. It also gave me the language to confidently do what I'm doing and to do it with conscious awareness. And I think the biggest difference for me is that is what took my practice from being therapeutic to therapy. Everything I was doing before my formal training was therapeutic because arts are therapeutic, movement, theater, everything that I've done was therapeutic for me and for the communities that I did it with. But the formal training that I got with the counseling theories and the psychology, which I then grew to like and love, that's what took it over from being therapeutic to now being therapy, which is what I do now. And I think that is the biggest difference for me. And that was really what a formal training gave me. Yeah.
I think just want to pull the thread from what Ruchi said. The reason why I got into dance movement therapy was the blend of psychology and dance. I'd almost decided I want to pursue choreography and want to become a choreographer and like pursue my career in that. And my psychology teacher, my student counselor at school, he just like popped this dance movement therapy word at me, and I was like, this looks really interesting. And psychology always interested me as a subject, but I never really thought of making my career in that. And I thought the blend of two was like the perfect combination for me, at least. And the formal training at grad, I would say, deepened my understanding of psychological theories, the theoretical framework that we study in psychology, the human mind, the human body, the neuroscience lens of it. And moreover, like, you know, of what Akanksha and Ruchi said, like, it has helped me on my personal journey so much. Like, I can see the difference of what I was before I went to grad school, the time that I was in grad school, and the time that I'm living now. I can see so much of difference between the three phases that are there. And yeah, it's just beautiful. And like, I don't have words for it, but yeah, it's just perfectly wrapped, I feel. And I just feel so blessed. Dance movement therapy is a part of me, and I am a part of dance movement therapy.
Aditi, do you want to go?
My story.
Yeah,
Thank you. I think my story is very similar to Disha's, actually, the whole combination of psychology and dance, because I started studying psychology when I was in 11th standard. And up until then, I was torn between marketing and genetic engineering, which by themselves are two very distinct professions. But because I was an IB student, so I was studying biochem, business studies, and psychology, along with English, French, and math. Like, that was my thing. And but that was the year when I started studying psychology. I had taken a break from training and dance for a while, and then in the 11th standard, I picked that up again as a part of a school program. And it just so happened that I thought I would get into like dance psychology, assuming there was something like sports psychology for dancers. And while Googling it, I uncovered dance movement therapy, and it was this sudden light bulb moment that went off maybe like 2 or 3 months into my 11th grade. And I just knew that was for me, because I had already started loving psychology by then, but I still couldn't imagine only doing verbal processing with someone. That to me felt like as good as a desk job, which I really did not, good for some, but really not for me. So then I ended up going to a liberal arts college where I could study, where I majored in psychology, minored in dance, specifically because I wanted to study dance movement therapy. And then I went to Drexel University right after my 4 years of college. I went straight away, no gap year, nothing in between. And I went to Drexel because they had this combination, like Columbia College Chicago, they offer dance movement therapy and counseling. So I knew that, thinking also of like the scope of dance movement therapy back in India, I wanted to have both the set of skills that I also felt that, you know, when you study something, it all intricately ties together, because that was my liberal education background that was telling me that all these boundaries between subjects are very artificial, like all of it is going to connect. If you study a few more courses, it's going to be helpful. And I loved the fact that there was a scientific lens to it. So for me, formal education taught me to have like these, put on different hats. So become a clinician, but also a supervisor, also a researcher, also somebody in a professional association, and like actively giving back to the field. So I felt like for me, formal education really did that. It taught me how to communicate professionally, how to advocate for myself. A big part of my program was advocating for yourself and advocating for your field, because DMT is very nascent in the US, even though it has been around there maybe for longer in a formalized sense than it has been here. Because we've had indigenous arts which have been doing the same kind of work. But for me, the formal education, the point of it was to have it all codified, have it organized, have it structured. And as somebody who's always into research and like the scientific side of it, have it like very neatly packaged, because that to me also was an indication that it would be legally in the right spot. It would be an ethically right spot as well, because I feel like ethical and legal practice is very integral to the work that I do.
Wow, I feel like everyone has just said so many things that are so relevant, and I am actually echoing everyone's bits and, you know, everyone's experiences and reasons for getting into formal education. So I think I'd probably like close it by saying that yes, absolutely. For me personally, you know, getting into a master's level training and a formal education really sort of helped me, you know, as most of you have said, helped me formalize and give me like a ground. I can already see my hands sort of saying something like a base, a structure, roots, ground. So I think these are words that come to me when I think of my formal education and why did I choose it. It's given me my ground to you know, to set myself into a formal, safe practice, you know, as you guys mentioned. And that for me has been extremely important. And there's always an image I use, and you know, that when somebody asks me what has you know, DMP been for you in your 2 years of formal training, and I always go back to that image. It feels like I've grown a limb, and it's there, it's with me. It's a limb that I use, and it's part of me, but it's not a complete change, but it's something has grown, something has its, you know, it has its own thing, it has its own you know, way of working when it does work, and it stays with me, and I think it's going to keep growing, and it's part of the community. And so yeah, it feels like for me, my formal education has given me a limb, another limb that's with me now. So, you know, thinking about the question, or the next part of the discussion, where we're looking at the scope of DMP in India, or DMT in India. So far, the past, you know, 1 year or more that I've come back, the first thing that I had in mind is I had begun to mentally, psychologically, emotionally prepare myself that this is not going to be easy. And I'm thinking, and I'm feeling, and I'm sensing that this might have been for a lot of us here. I knew that this is going to be, you know, something very new for everyone. So for me, that's one thing that always helped me when I went into professional spaces, whether that was, you know, interviewing or speaking with schools, speaking with therapy centers, speaking in corporate spaces. I knew that I have to bear in mind that this is a very new field. It might not be understood as easily as, you know, how somebody like a therapist or a counselor who's a verbal therapist or a counselor who's been in, you know, whose field has been here for a long time would be understood. And so that helped me to just sort of come back and hold my patience and just sort of empathize with my own self and not be too hard on myself. Because I know the scope of DMP, and DMT has been difficult for me personally. And but another thing that, speaking of knowing that this is difficult for people to understand, and because this is new, one thing that helped me is, I did a small task towards the end, and we did this at uni, is writing down what I see myself as professionally. What's my designation, or what's my role, or who am I? If I have to professionally give myself something, a particular designation, what do I see myself as? And that helped me, because that made me realize, wow, I see myself as a professional mental health practitioner. I see myself as a registered dance movement therapist. I see myself as a movement facilitator, because that's something I was doing professionally before I went into becoming a dance movement therapist. I worked closely with children and older adults. I worked at NGOs, and I was working as a movement teacher, as a movement facilitator. And so that made me realize that I can take DMP and fit it in lots of different fields. And I think that that again was a beginning and a starting point for me to take DMP as a practice, as a formal practice in different places. And very quickly, just to sort of share, the recent job that I got was when there was a LinkedIn, job that popped up, and it was actually for a psychologist. And being, part of the process of sort of looking for jobs, I just ended up writing a cover letter and dropping my CV and saying, hey, this is the kind of work I do, and I've had a look at your center, and I think, this might complement, or, this is a service, a dance movement therapy service might work very well for your patients. And this is something then got, it got picked up on. The founder herself got very interested and intrigued about what this practice is. And now I sort of have like a job, a consultancy job. So it just made me realize how important it is. And for me, it's been to remember that, DMP is not just one practice, which is sort of limited and restricted. It's literally going back to the limb. It can be part of lots of different spaces, lots of different professional groups. As Ruchi and most of you said, we work with a diverse range of client groups, of population, working with children, working all the way to older adults, with older people as well. So yes, there is scope for DMP in India. And I'm sure Ruchi, Akanksha, most of you will also add and say more in terms of the Indian association that's come up. But a lot is happening, and I know that this is growing. The field is growing. It is going to get recognized. And of course, to sort of wrap the answer up, I will say that wherever there's work with the body, DMP fits. And whether it's corporates, education, medical, so many more, everywhere we're working, there's work with the body. We take our bodies along, and that's literally all the potential places where DMP could be fit. So with that in mind, I do sort of wake up sometimes and be like, no, there is scope for DMP in India. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. Somewhere or the other, this will fit. This will, this can be added. This can be in addition. This can be in combination. This can be married to so many other, professional services. And so with that in mind, I know that there's a lot of potential scope for DMP in India. It is hard at the moment, but I know things are only getting better and things are only growing. So yeah, that's my input.
Okay, I'll go. I think for me, what I used to say a lot before I even came back was, in a country and in a society where therapy is still stigmatized and art is celebrated, dance movement therapy would be a fantastic way to bring people into the idea of healing and mental health and change and just destigmatizing therapy. We celebrate dance, we celebrate our arts. It's so ingrained in our culture. So that's kind of what I always said, even when I was in grad school. And opposite to Nishi, and to bring this thought of mine to life, the very first formal job that I got in Bombay, which I even work at the school that I work at right now, actually was looking for a dance teacher. They were looking for somebody to do their annual concert. And somebody who worked there knew me. She reached out to me. She said, they're looking for a dance teacher. I said, you know what? I'm going to come and have a conversation. And I went and I spoke to the principal and I spoke to the coordinator of the therapy department and section. And I took the job and I did the first concert. And then through my work, not just by saying what I do, I obviously explained dance movement therapy to them, but through my work, I started showing them the impact that dance movement therapy has and how it's not just dance, but it's so much more. So like Nishi said, LinkedIn psychology job for me, it was Instagram dance and a job. And now I have individual kids that I see in the school. I run groups. I obviously help out with all of the dance stuff. But as of before this lockdown, the principal literally called me one day and says, I want you to do more individual sessions because I'm seeing how impactful the work is. And that is the scope of dance movement therapy in India. It felt pretty good because I think it's just people need to start seeing it. And if for once, dance is what lures them into it, if creativity and movement and the arts is what lures them into it, then why not that be the first step in that direction, right? Because I had the completely opposite experience when I went into a hospital, and this is a hospital I knew had a psych department and a psychiatry department, and I went and I said, this is what I do. And the coordinator walked me up to like the 5th floor or something, and she showed me what their psych unit looked like, and she said, you really think you can do something like that in here? And my whole body, mind, and spirit was like, hell yes, I will figure out a way to do it. But she's like, it takes our patients so much convincing to even come in to have one conversation with our counselor and take the medication we're prescribing for them. Dance movement therapy? What are you talking about, right? So there is scope for it. It's just that we need to start talking about it, spreading awareness about it, ethically practicing it ourselves as therapists, and showing people the impact that the work has. And like Nishi said, through IADMT, through all of the organizations each of us individually run or work at. And I think this is the scope of the work, and the scope lies with the community that all of us make up as well. The scope will grow with each of us growing in the field and making our mark in the field and doing the work in the field. So even if there wasn't scope 10 years ago, there is scope now, and the scope is just increasing with people like all of us and all of you out there who want to study it even more and bring it back. It's definitely slow. It's not like you come back, you have a long list of job applications waiting. You have to create your job. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to work through the struggle. You have to be okay with like not getting accepted in certain spaces, not because there's something wrong with you, but there isn't space for what you do in there yet. But you just kind of worm your way through, and then you create that space for yourself and for the people around you. So definitely scope, and it's definitely been an interesting learning experience. I never would define myself as an entrepreneur like before 2016, but in 2018 when I came to India, I was like, oh, that is exactly what I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. So yeah.
I just want to very quickly pick up a few things that have just called out to me from Nishi and Ruchi. So I'm not so much going to go into my personal journey, but just pick up a few words that called out to me. So one is ethics, practicing ethically in India, and the other one is flexibility. So I want to share a small, when I think of scope of practice and how to get a job in India and how to set up a practice in India. Initially, when I came here, I was refusing a lot of things coming my way. No, this is not dance therapy. I can't do this. No, this is not, but they are not understanding what I'm doing, And then my supervisor, literally, like I was having a session with her and she said, Akanksha, do you want to spread dance movement therapy in India or not? Is it something you want to keep for yourself, or is it something that you want to give out to others? And I said, of course it's something I want to give out to others. And she said, then you have to practice ethically but flexibly. So like, you know, like how Ruchi and Nishi also explained, that you have to get an in first and then start to do your work. And then if you refuse them in the very beginning, they will never know what you have, because in fact, when I started out, like in 2016-17, there was even lesser information. Right now, there are so many courses. There's IIDMB. There's still more information. When you go online and look, there's still more information on DMT. But when we came back, there was very little of all of that. So how would people know unless you show them what it is? And there is scope, like everybody is saying. Relatively for me, my first job was actually easier because I did work with a dance movement psychotherapist. So that was like a wow experience for me. I came in, and then when I started to branch out was when I realized that I've got to get an in, because, you know, talking about dance movement therapy is not helping them understand what it is. I have to be there, I have to do the work, I have to show them. And I have to say that no matter what your designation is, no matter what it is, your practice counts and your practice matters. The way you do your work, the way you use your body in the work helps people understand what you're doing. And it just, I think, it increases and grows, I don't know what the right word, the scope of practice in India for dance movement therapy too. So for everyone, if there is a little advice, not even advice, if there's something that I can offer from my experience that I had a very difficult time learning, is be ethical and be flexible, both at the same time. Figure that balance out for yourself. I think that makes life easier in establishing your own practice or working as a dance movement therapist in India.
I think just again pulling the threads from what Nishi said, what Ruchi said, what Akanksha said. Similar to what Ruchi said, India, I want to use the word blessed over here, is blessed with diversified dance forms culturally. We dance at festivals, we dance at weddings, we dance when India wins a cricket match. We literally find occasions to move to dance. And I personally feel that the more we talk about mental health, the more this is going to be accepted. And definitely, like, the scope of dance movement therapy, because like I mentioned about the culturally diversified dance forms that we have in India. And earlier there was maybe a little information about dance movement therapy, but now we have so much more information about it. So, and I think this is speaking from my personal journey. After I came back, I literally didn't know what to do. And I think just reaching out and like taking a leap of faith, I would say, of, you know, like just go there and like conduct workshops, advocate for dance movement therapy, connect with other dance movement therapists. I know I have connected with so many of you over here, and just reaching out and saying, you know what, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed today, or like, I don't know what is happening. And like having that support system is what is going to take dance movement therapy in India forward.
All right, so many things to resonate with. So my journey back, I think I had left sometime formally in 2014, 2015. And before I went, because I'd done the certificate course, I was doing some groups. Like maybe somebody would reach out, I would reach out. There was a lot of group dance therapy happening. So as I went through the masters, my work became more and more clinical dance movement therapy, right? We are working with as primary clinicians to people rather than an alternate practice. And having practiced that ethically and getting the kind of supervision and support to do that, I think one of the things I definitely wanted to bring back with me was to keep dance therapy clinical and not as an alternate way to mental health, because mental health without body felt like a disservice to me. Yeah, and this was, I think I came back 2019 Feb. I graduated 2017 fall. I worked there for about a year. And I came, and I think I just spent 2 months meeting everyone. I spoke to everyone who was under the name of dance therapy here, and I really wanted to collaborate. I didn't think I would start off on my own. That wasn't my first plan. I wanted to collaborate. And somehow it felt like just the way the economy of dance therapy is, there is a lot of teaching happening, but not less in India. There's a lot of teaching happening, but very little organizational structures where they'd hire you as a dance therapist, especially if you're a team of dance therapy. And that's just the nature of economics, right? Like, people are interested enough. The ones who are interested want to become a dance therapist, but given the stigma, very few people want to try dance therapy. So then I got a little bit adamant. I'm like, no, if somebody's hiring me, they better hire me because I'm a dance therapist. So I waited. I'm from Visakhapatnam originally. I did want to stay there. And I went to the city mental hospital. I went to other physicians, etc. And I'm like, I do this. Will you hire me? I've had very mixed reviews. People were willing to hire me for free. Some of them who were not willing to hire were like, if we refer people out to you, they might think we don't know our job. So there was a little bit of friction I faced. And then I'm like, all right, let's see. Let me handpick 1 or 2 jobs where they're willing to take in a dance therapist, and then I'll take it from there. And that's how Sukoon Tata Institute happened. They were happy to have a body-based mental health clinician on board, and really thankful to their openness. I get to practice dance therapy in legal settings, but also through that spread the word and like do workshops for people in positions of power, if I may, who really come in skeptical. And at the end of the session, we were like, we didn't think that would work, but it did. So that was a good thing that happened. And that job kind of brought me to Mumbai. And that's part-time, that's not a full-time job. And I was looking to do something outside of it. As I said, I wanted to create a community because I wasn't able to get one right away. And then I started Dance for Mental Health, which started as a clinic space. I think I really was stubborn about calling it a dance movement therapy clinic. I knew few people would come if I called it dance therapy clinic, and I had better chances if I said psychotherapy center, counseling center, and more people would come in. But as I had the privilege of calling it dance therapy clinic and being okay with having less clients at the beginning, but it worked out because compared to my experience in 2015, I felt more and more people were coming to me because I was a dance therapy clinic. And they were open to asking the question, we want therapy. Do you do this? You know, that to wait for those 5 minutes and be like, we understand you do dance therapy, we don't know what it is, but we feel like we can trust you in some way. So do you address depression, anxiety, etc. Right? So that willingness was there. And I think that happened because of the years before me when I was always studying, the people who came back, you all, right? Whoever was building the community here, that is why that openness came. And I was glad to be at the receiving end of it. So the Dance for Mental Health is now an organization. I run it. COVID came, I closed my clinic. I'm fully virtual. And I'm very happy to say that DNH, as I call it, is now expanding. We are hiring another therapist. And it's also becoming there's a community project coming up, More things when they happen. But my dream of wanting a community when I came back is something I'm getting to build as well. And I hope we work more and more collaboratively, everyone.
Right. So picking up from where Deepa left, the whole idea of like collaboration is something that I think is very significant, and it really plays into the whole idea of the scope of dance movement therapy, because we've had CINTI, which is Creative Movement Therapy Association of India, and then we've had IADMT, Indian Association of Dance Movement Therapy. And I feel like when you start forming professional networks, that is a huge part of expanding the scope of practice, because you have people with all these skill sets who are bringing in their knowledge. And it's not just people who have trained abroad, it's people who have trained in India, who have trained not just in the UK or US, where most people typically go. It's people who've experienced training all over the world and who are bringing that knowledge in. But I think one thing that resonates across trainings is they teach you 2 things. One is to advocate for self. And when you have people from different countries bringing in that skill set of advocacy, you are not waiting for the scope to expand, you are actively expanding it yourself. And another thing that all this diverse training teaches you, the second common theme, is that it tells you that just because something takes time doesn't mean that the worth of your training or your own self-worth is any less. And I think that is very important to keep in mind as I always work on the function expression continuum of Laban movement analysis. So one scope, I don't know if people mentioned this, but for me, medical DMT is what I'm really interested in. My program director was the person who's written the first medical DMT book. So that was very much a part of my program. And I feel like because DMT is such a physical modality, you can do a lot of concrete physical body-based goals, even if it doesn't tie to psychotherapy. And then there are times when it does tie, and it ties beautifully at that. So I am going to be hopefully starting working at a hospital soon. COVID is what pushed the plans back. Otherwise, I probably would have started back in April. But another thing, like coming back to the whole organizations, I felt like at least if I wasn't able to help out clients right now, I wanted to do something for my fellow DMTs. And that's another scope of practice. Like, how do you support the field as a whole? So I was able to join the ethics committee of IADMT. I'm going to be joining Sintai as the vice chair for their West Zone chapter. So there are ways that you can still do things which are professional, even if they're not necessarily clinical. And then a month from now, as Deepa mentioned, DMH is expanding, Dance for Mental Health is expanding, and I'm going to be joining Deepa as a clinician. And that came from collaboration. That came from us working together on the same committee, communicating outside of it. Yes. So I feel like a huge part of thinking about the scope of practice in India is also thinking about ways to support your fellow professionals, because nobody is going to be like waiting to like open a gate for you. You just have to like barge at it with all your energy and like with all the people that you know, and do that for yourself.
Dance movement therapy for mental health, because healing is incomplete without the body.
So if we're trying to work with our mental health and with our psyche and with our emotions, I think we need to address what's going on for our body.
If our bodies are part of every experience that we experience, every moment that we live and every breath that we take, why leave the body out of the therapy space and the space that we enter to work on our experiences and evolve and change?
There's the body and there are humans. The blend of two gives meaning not just to mental health, but overall well-being.
Dance movement therapy for mental health, because our bodies are the first place to sense, they're the birth of emotions. They're the first place to sense, get information, give to the brain, and tell us what we're feeling. So if we don't start with the body, we are missing a few steps already.
The first thing they tell you in any dance movement therapy program is that the reason why we do DMT is so that you can expand your movement repertoire, which means it will translate into an expanded coping repertoire, so that you have more ways to act upon the world or reflect on them. And I think that happens because with DMT, we focus on the five senses, but we move beyond all of those five senses to the other bodily senses, your kinesthetic sense, proprioception, noiseception, interoception. So you're reflecting on senses from the sensations from the outside and the inside, and you just end up with not just an expanded coping repertoire, but also an expanded worldview. It really is like having an extra layer of perception added to your whole life.